Aquaman is the main hero in DC right now. So much so, in fact, that I believe he's going to be the primary hero to take out the returning Darkseid. Let's talk about it. Before you say I'm biased and I'm glazing, I want you to actually sit and think about how they're portraying Aquaman right now when it comes to all of DC. I want you to compare that portrayal to those like Diana and Batman, because when it comes to a looming threat that we do know exists, Wonder Woman's stories are self-isolated and contained, not really doing much when it comes to the grand cosmos. The same logic kind of applies to Batman right now, dealing more with just Gotham politics and trying to reestablish all that right now with Poison Ivy and whatnot. When it comes to actually going out in the cosmos, saving the entire universe, if not multiverse in general, the main hero doing that right now is Arthur. One of the main reasons I had this epiphany, you could say, is I reread the second most recent Aquaman series, and that prophecy that they were hyping up about him being the dark tide crashing into his enemies never really happened in DCKO. He was supposed to be hyped up to go against the Omega, but never did it. That's because the DCKO event is not what Aquaman's being built up for. It's the return of Darkseid. Look what Orion says to him. You are the fulfillment of the prophecy, the dark tide that crashes upon the shores of its enemies. You are the vessel to be filled. The new God cometh. The more and more you go on into this series, the more and more they keep reestablishing that phrase. Shall come from the end, the Omega from which it began, the dark tide that crashed upon the shores of his enemies, an empty vessel to be filled, wielding blood, turbulent water stilled, God killer who controls all the tides and the seas. But beware the old one, the witch in the darkened mast. Beware the illusion, a kiss in the enemies of thy past. Stand firm in the storm until all are freed. Stand firm once again, ye king of the sea. I want you to pick out that witch statement, because we know exactly who they're referring to when it comes to said witch. That's Mara's mom. She is thy witch from ancient past, coming to present to try to thwart Aquaman's reign as king. She wants to remove his title over the blue. But more importantly, I want you to figure out the positioning of when she's placed in the story. It's after the DCKO event. She is the reason why Aquaman didn't have much relevancy in the DCKO event. And yet, despite that, that very notion of him needing to exist, this prophecy still exists past said event. For Aquaman, issue number 2. King Shark, an avatar of the red, notes and comes to Aquaman that he had a vision during the tournament of DCKO, where Aquaman is a necessity, so much so that he's willing to put his own life on the line to make sure whatever Aquaman is doing is successful. Issue 3. Even Jaro, the cosmic space starfish, says this, and even more I saw what he must do, or Earth and the universe will become nothing more than the sea of dead stars. I have multiple aspects and entities coming across the entire universe to tell you that if Aquaman does not succeed in what's going on right now, literally some of the most strongest telepathic minds, entities who have dominion over chaos as a concept, Orion in this notion, all these super powerful entities are saying if Aquaman doesn't succeed, the entire universe is gone, cooked. I want you to keep in mind what other league member right now is being pushed in that same way. Like I know the other two you would think in this scenario, Batman and Wonder Woman, are not. Superman is gone right now. I believe because of that vacancy, they're throwing Aquaman in that position of Superman until he comes back to reclaim that spot. Let's talk about the blue real quick. Ryan noticed that at the very beginning, Order and Chaos were in tandem with each other until Chaos does what Chaos does and upended it all. So Order fought back, and doing so created the universal structures, focusing that chaotic energy and swirled it into forces we know as the emotional spectrum, the elemental forces, and gods. These energies are still their own, threads in the fabric of the universe itself. One of these is called the blue, the hope of life transferred through the confluence to every planet and every living being. You must know by now, Arthur, you must have always known, water is not merely an element. It is magic. It keeps everything alive, from the red to the green. There's few discrepancies. Quite literally, being the member or the avatar of the blue is almost no different than the Phoenix Force, an entity who on a conceptual level represents life. Sure, Phoenix has more monikers and whatnot, but practically what Jean was doing in this series, Aquaman is doing in his own. Let's jump up a little bit. You remember when Dagon killed Aquaman outright, crushed his heart in its totality? Notes, but there's something more. The blue wants to use me. Counter the Omega. Remember that with something else. It wants me to be its vessel, a dark tide to crash upon the shores of my enemies of evil. It wants me to be its avatar, to become unconquerable, and all I can say is yes. What is this telling us? Aquaman wasn't the character meant to win the DCKO event. No, he's the character that's meant to pick up for the heroes after Superman did what he did in the DCKO event. We know Darkseid's not truly defeated. He just got pushed back to a certain point where he's going to return. The Omega. The dark tide right now is being built up by the literal universe itself, some of the strongest entities, to soon crash down upon evil, crash down upon death, crash down upon Darkseid. Not every cover art is portrayed this way, but do you think it was a coincidence that they constantly kept pushing the correlation between Darkseid and Aquaman? Darkseid is Aquaman. You see him with the Omega eyes. CKO tying Aquaman, the specter of Darkseid, the fall of a king. Again, the Omega symbol, Aquaman, which is the dark tide, is literally the correlation that Aquaman and Darkseid are going to have to box out soon. The entire series opens up from the last Aquaman series with him coming from an Omega gate. I can see people being like, well, Aquaman's not strong enough to go up against Darkseid. But that's exactly why Emperor Aquaman is doing what he's doing. Why each and every issue we're getting all these astronomical levels of feats. Those that put him on those top tier statuses. Us as a community are already arguing amongst themselves if he's already comparable or stronger than characters like Diana. That's just going to get more and more the series he develops. Obviously, they're trying to put him on a pedestal to where he is able to actually contest Darkseid. Not only do the Trinity praise Aquaman for taking a punch from Superman, something they know isn't casually done, Aquaman reinforces his notion, saying that he feels an infinite number of oceans flowing through me. His power is constantly being referenced to be power that stretches across the entire universe. Power stated time and time again by every entity that has interacted with Aquaman since he became with the Blue. Infinite. He's blowing up planets. He's dealing with cosmological power sources. And like I said, if he's actually has something to do with the emotional spectrum when it comes to his interaction with Hell, and I believe in the next issue, if he truly is interacting with any and all power sources in the universe, it's obvious DC is building him up to stop Darkseid on his return, or do something to stop Darkseid on his return. Even more so when you find out what Darkseid represents is death. That is one of his main, I believe that it is. It's either death, destruction. It's one of those, antithesis to life type things. Aquaman is life, like I noted, damn near conceptually in nature. It's obvious they're setting up the parallel for life versus death. The everything, the universe, the multiverse versus the end of all things. And as the series that I've been showcasing to you so far has been hyping up, no one else in DC is being hyped up like Aquaman to face on the Omega. Mark my words, soon, very soon, Aquaman is going to be a Superman tiered individual. One that is a necessity to protect all that is.